Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone Podcast, everyone, presented by Toyota. Another heartbreaking season for the Bills comes to a heartbreaking end with a 33-30 overtime loss to the Broncos out in Denver. To boot, due to technical difficulties, Andy Young unable to join me, so we're going to have a quick abbreviated Buffalo End Zone Podcast right here as we go through what went right and what went wrong for the Bills, and mostly what went wrong. It was just a mess of an afternoon for the Bills. They really did this to themselves. 5 turnovers in this one. Josh Allen with what amounted to 2 interceptions. We'll get to the second one in just a little bit. Also fumbled the ball twice, and that is where the big issue is. James Cook with the other fumble. But Josh Allen's fumble coming at the end of the first half when the Bills could have just nailed the ball down, would have been trailing by 7 going into the second half. Instead, Allen fumbles a ball before the intermission. The Broncos land on it and get the field goal, and that's what amounts to the Bills falling in this game. They fall by 3. You take those 5 turnovers out, 4 by Allen. Allen also off the mark throughout this entire game. But the sequence towards the end of the first half, I think, really put the team in a hole. And then they came out after the break, and Allen fumbled right away there. But questionable play calling and decision-making at the end of the half. Head coach Sean McDermott speaking after the game, saying they were hoping to get a chunk play down the sideline, maybe get closer to possibly kick a field goal. But, I mean, you got to throw that on Allen, too. If there's nothing there and you're scrambling, just go to the ground and let the clock run out. The whole situation just made no sense and was bad and put the Bills behind the 8 ball going into the second half. Amazingly, they dug themselves out of it and actually grabbed a lead. And for a defense that spent the entire second half keeping the Broncos and Bo Nix, who, by the way, according to reports, suffered an injury to his ankle and is now done for the rest of the postseason. So the Broncos host the AFC Championship against either the Patriots or the Texans, and they'll be out without their starting quarterback. But back to the Bills. Got sidetracked there just for a little bit. The whole sequence going into halftime, coming out of halftime with the fumble, the fact that the defense came out and really stopped Bo Nix in that Broncos offense in the second half. The big question to me, and I talked to our buddy Stevie Johnson, former Bills wide receiver, on the postgame show, was why still at this point in the season, you're in the playoffs, the divisional round, why are you waiting till halftime to make adjustments when if you just stepped that game up a little bit more in the first half, maybe the Bills wouldn't have been in the situation that they were in. But again, we'll go back through this. Bills did it themselves. 33-30 was the final in overtime. We talked about the sequence leading up to halftime. We've talked about the turnovers. Josh Allen, 2 picks, 2 fumbles. James Cook, 1 fumble, really did the Bills in. I thought if not for the turnovers and some of them sloppy, that the Bills would have ran away with this one. And it looked like they were going to go up 14-3 when Cook fumbled the ball. And then that really turned the game around right there. Allen for a whole, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 280-something yards through the air. The numbers look good. James Cook, over 100 yards rushing in this. And when you look at what Allen and Cook did, that normally results in what would have been a Bills win. The big issue was what we'll call Josh Allen's 4th turnover of the day, which to the naked eye, and I mean, if you go to social media right now, there's so much debate on this with the officials at the game meeting with pool reporter from ESPN after, saying that it was clearly an interception. We're talking about Josh Allen looking deep late in the game, a ball to Brandon Cooks that by all means to me looks like Cook caught it, secured it to his body, one knee down, butt down, and then the Broncos defender reaches in, pulls the ball out while Cooks is going to the ground. Boom, interception right there. Referees and referee analysts and experts online saying that that's just the rule in the NFL. But to fans, the eye test doesn't match. For all we've talked about, for all of us who have followed football our entire lives, the eye test didn't match up with what the referees were calling out there. So Sean McDermott, very adamant and very emotional. Josh Allen, very emotional after this game, putting the blame on himself. Dion Dawkins, Brandon Cooks, emotional in the locker room, saying that the loss wasn't Josh's fault. And Sean McDermott coming out and clearly pointing out to the Brandon Cooks pass play that was ultimately ruled an interception as a big swing in this game where the officiating crew fast played it to just try and move on. And McDermott said he had to take a timeout just to slow things down. But it appeared New York had already made up their mind. The officiating crew already made up their mind. The viewer at home already made up their mind. And now the Broncos have the ball in overtime and are moving, and it just seemed inevitable. You know, everyone sits there and says, players and fans alike, it's the playoffs. We don't want the officiating to take control over the game. We want the players on the field to take over the game. So now you get some defensive pass interference, including one to Trey White that put the ball down where it was just a chip shot field goal for the Broncos to advance and move on. And sure enough, they did. You didn't even really have to watch it. And the weird part is, for the most part during the game, the officiating crew were spot on. It seemed like they would let the players play this game out and wouldn't get in the way. And then overtime comes, and it seemed to me that they took control. Now, 5 turnovers is very hard to overcome. The Bills have themselves to blame for that. The defense waiting until the second half to start putting pressure on Bo Nix, they have to deal with that too. And some of the offensive play calling, the Bills are going to have to deal with that as well. Josh Allen also had a chance to hit Dawson Knox over the middle towards the end there, which looked like it would have been easy for Knox to cruise into the end zone and lock that one up, but that didn't happen as well. So again, you look at the 13 seconds game. We might have another name for this game at some point. I don't have one off the top of my head right now, but it sure seems like this is another game with a name that the Bills are going to have to deal with exiting the postseason in the divisional round. And this was a year that all the cards were playing out for the Bills to get to at least the Super Bowl and then see what happens once they got there. But they did it to themselves. All this talk about no Patrick Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, clearly the top talent at quarterback on the AFC side going into the playoffs. It was going to be a tough road, having to win 3 games on the road just to get to the Super Bowl. But it looked like the team was in position, and now we're going to move on to another offseason. And like I said earlier, the emotion from Bills players, the downright crying, trying to get through interviews with the media. Dion Dawkins had to walk away, said that it's not Josh Allen's fault, and just shut it down and walked away. Brandon Cooks, through tears, saying he caught that ball. Josh Allen looked like after the game something I had never seen from him before. I mean, the season has got to take a toll on him. He was beaten around through most of this year, sacked way more than he had been sacked a season ago, and just really fought to get through this. Jordan, if we have a YouTube comment, let me know what it is, and I'll read it on air. Who's that by? Marcelo T. Moro there, tough loss. And I think these are the comments that you're going to get. Tough loss, too many 5 turnovers. We're talking 5 turnovers in this one. The reigning MVP with what amounted to 4 of them is really a hard hill to get over once the game is all said and done. Impressive they got to overtime. I'll keep saying that you did that to yourself and you were still there, which makes it even more frustrating that you were in position to win this one and couldn't do it even with after all the mistakes. I need some water. Jort. Yeah, so there you go, another comment. So we lost to a team that won't win next week. Well, we'll see what Jared Stidham has to say about it. Possibly going up against the Patriots or the Houston Texans. So that should be interesting as we still wait for things to play out on the Sunday action on the AFC side of things. But again, Bills season coming to a rough end. A lot of questions going on. I think the wide receiver room needs to get blown up. I think they need more help on defense. Maybe get younger, faster in the wide receiver room as well. Brandon Cooks did all he could once joining the Bills. Had a couple of drops there early on, but seemed to have been coming around. But that was really it. I mean, aside from Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman had a touchdown in this one, but you really didn't see him really out there much. He also dropped what would have been an easy touchdown, but there was a holding call earlier in the game. I thought we'd see more from the tight ends ultimately, and Dalton Kincaid ends up with a touchdown in this one and got a little more into the passing game as we got into the second half. But I thought that would have been more of how the attack went. Bills with the tush push often in this one to pick up first downs. But still, there will be questions. There will be changes. The Bills will be going into next season with a different look. What happens with Joe Brady? What happens with Bobby Babich? Moving into the offseason will remain to be seen. Sean McDermott as well. I think the coaching is going to take a lot of heat for this one as well, just due to questions that were out there. It was totally amazing when I looked through my notes at some of the stuff that went down. Some of the typical Bills problems from during the regular season. Tough getting off the field on third down in the first half. Some poor coverage downfield early in this one for a team that ranked up near the top. And we still had the same thing with almost getting to the quarterback every time, but never quite getting there. And certain issues with just not being able to get off the field. It is what it is at this point. Bills end the season with 12 wins. 12-5, 5-3 away. Broncos move on. Josh Allen banged up. So the next thing we have on tap will be Bills locker cleanout day. Should be coming over the next couple of days. Then we'll hear from head coach Sean McDermott. We'll hear from Bills general manager Brandon Beane as the week goes on. And then there you are. Once again, we're into the offseason. Don't even make it to the AFC Championship game. So now it starts to roll into the NFL Combine, the draft, the Senior Bowls and stuff like that for college players. And here we are in another offseason. Earlier than I think Bills fans, or I know Bills fans, wanted to be. It looked like this was the year, but again, the Bills coming up short, getting to overtime, 33-30, the final. 5 turnovers doing the Bills in. I think the referees ultimately played a role as well, but what's done is done. Nothing's going to change off of that. We will have Andy Young back with us later on in the week. We'll have another Buffalo End Zone podcast coming up to kind of put the wraps on this season after we hear from the Bills brass and more. We're going to cut it short here. This was a little quick Bills post-game podcast. Again, they fall 33-30. to the Denver Broncos in overtime in the divisional rounds. As always, everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you later on in the week.